Hello everyone and welcome back. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a brilliant day or evening or morning or wherever you are. Today I'm going to be talking about digital versus traditional artists. Yes, that very contentious question. Which is better? Is it traditional art or is it digital art? Which camp are you in? And if there even needs to be camps, why we can't all just get together and share our knowledge. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. I post art things on normally like a bi-weekly basis, so every other week. My next one hopefully is going to be not this coming Friday, but the Friday after. That's the goal. So keep an eye out for it on Friday. And in my last video, I created a character which was based on a cat who comes to visit recently called Garfield. And I asked for suggestions of locations so that I could kind of create a storyline for this character and do some illustrations based on his adventures. Thank you so much if you put in a comment. I've had loads of comments and they've all been really great suggestions. I've had mystical gardens and plains and the Colosseum and all sorts of interesting things. If you haven't and you'd like to contribute, there's still time. Just pop a comment in the comment section below in that video, which there is a link to right now in the screen. Just click on the link and post a comment. You can basically put anywhere that you think the character Garfield would like to go. It can be the future, the past, it doesn't matter. But hopefully I'll be starting that on this Friday, so there's still a little bit of time if you've got any ideas. So because I'm not doing that this week, I decided I really wanted to do this challenge that was issued by Deviant Art in collaboration with Loish, who is a digital artist. So the challenge is a do this in your own style, which is pretty self-explanatory. So the artist, Loish in this case, she posted a picture and it's basically you recreate the artist post in your own style. Which, I mean, that could be a bit tricky if you don't really know what your style is. The main reason I really wanted to do it is because I think Loish is such a massive inspiration to me and I really, really like her work. She's a Dutch artist and her real name is Loish van Baal? Loish van Baal? And my Dutch boyfriend would be so upset with the way I'm pronouncing this probably. But she's a fantastic artist and she started on Deviant Art, which is the main platform. And the reason that they're doing this challenge, this art challenge, is because it's Deviant Art's 20th birthday. Now, Deviant Art, if you don't know, is basically it's like an online gallery for artists of any, as far as I'm aware, any skill. I personally haven't gone on it myself. But yeah, that's basically what it is. So it's their birthday, or at least it was a couple of weeks ago. So yay for them. And I love a challenge. So I really wanted to get my teeth stuck into this one. So Loish posted the picture, which if you haven't seen, you can find it on my Instagram. I'm going to be posting this completed photo and then also the reference with it. In the original photo, I wasn't really a big fan of the pose. So I did shake it up and I did change the pose for my own picture. She had her arm above her head and she was holding a stylus. And a stylus is basically the tool that a digital artist uses in place of a paintbrush or a pen or a pencil. Loish did say if you wanted to change anything, you could change the tool that she was using to be the one that you like using the most. So obviously I swapped mine for a paintbrush. I didn't think a pencil or a pen would quite work, but a paintbrush seems pretty good. I made a couple of personal changes, so other than the pose, as you can see here, I love how that watercolour blended. It was so beautiful. I love it when that happens. So as you can see, I decided that I would also draw a peach. I can understand how it might look a little bit like an apple, but the intention is it's a peach. And the reason I did this is because one of my favourite paintings that I've done to date was a painting with a whole bunch of peaches in it. And so I wanted to kind of allude to a painting that I had personally done myself. And this is kind of what it feels like for me when I'm creating something I'm really proud of. It's a bit like, it's magic. It's a kind of magic. So I kind of wanted to emulate that, which is why I have the peach. And I'm actually really happy with the pose and everything that I chose, and I much prefer it. So the equipment that I used is I use Winsor & Newton watercolours as the base. I also use some Winsor & Newton tube watercolours, which I mostly use for the hair because it's a little bit more vibrant in primary colours, so yellows, reds and blues. I didn't want to go too heavy with the watercolour because the sketchbook that I was using is one that I won in a competition, and it wasn't very clear. I don't know how well it will hold up against watercolour. You can get some sketchbooks that are sort of, intended for watercolours, and I don't think this one is. I have used watercolours on it before, and actually it's done pretty well. It's held up pretty well, but I don't want to push it. I didn't go too heavy with the watercolour before, and I did only once. I used some inks, and it did warp the paper a bit. So I was very conscious when I was adding, like here, pools of water. I was super conscious not to do it too much because I didn't want the paper to warp, and I didn't want the paper to disintegrate in any way. So I knew that it was going to be mixed media, this piece, and I wasn't just going to be using watercolours. So besides the watercolours, I also used some colouring pencils. And I think the brand is, it's called Brynzeel. Again, I think it's a Dutch brand. Brynzeel. I know my set, I think, came from the Rijksmuseum. So, so I think it's a Dutch brand. But they're just your normal colouring pencils, and they have great variety, so I use them. And I basically use them to smooth out the watercolour, because when you're using watercolour and you really want to get that really lovely blend, you tend to use the wet on wet technique. So you wet the watercolour paper first, and then you apply some paint, and it kind of naturally spreads across the water. And as I said before, I didn't really want to do that because I didn't want to risk ruining the paper. So I tried not to do that very much, but that can lead a little bit to streakiness. So as you can see now, I'm just kind of using it to blend out some of the colours that I used to give it a bit more of a natural gradient and a bit more of a smoothness and transition. I also used some Faber and Castell fine art pens. I'm not sure if it's Faber and Castell. I don't think it is. It's Faber and Castell. Pitt Artist Pen Brush, which are really, really, really good. It's India ink and waterproof. And I basically use them, as you can see now, just for like odd little details where I didn't want to use black, because black can look really... Black can look really stark, and I don't know, makes everything look a bit too artificial, a bit too cartoony. So I prefer using slightly darker colours of the ones I've already applied, which these pens were brilliant for, but I did use them sparingly, so just really in the hair. And then my favourite thing that I used on this piece was my gouache, which is Reeves Gouache. Gouache. As I've said before in another video, Reeves isn't the most expensive brand, but you know, in this circumstance, it was brilliant to use because I was just using it for literally highlights, and everyone loves doing the highlights. That's the favorite part. So that's all I was using it for, and I really enjoyed using it. I was so happy with the effects I was getting, and I didn't have any problems using it. So as I said before, this was inspired by Loish, who is a digital artist. Now, I'm not here to pick a side, even though I myself am a traditional artist. I do not think now that digital artists, being a digital artist, means that you are less of an artist. I don't think it means that you are less skilled than a traditional artist either. And here's why. When I was at school, I was pretty good at art at school, and we had a lesson where we had to do digital stuff. I grew up in the 90s, so I don't think the tech was what it is now, and especially good, and I remember it not being especially good. And I really thought at the time that digital art, I hated it. I was like, this isn't art, this is cheating. That's what I felt like it was. It felt like it was cheating, and that it was tech and not for artists, and I wasn't a techie person, so I didn't think it was fair to give that advantage to people who weren't artistic. That was my mindset when I was like at school. And I've only really come to appreciate digital artists recently, because a lot of my favorite artists, there's a lot of traditional ones that I really, really like, but quite a few of them are digital artists. And I've come to understand that being a great digital artist doesn't necessarily mean that you're just doing fantasy-based things in really vibrant, bright colors for games, which I think a lot of people mistake it for. I've seen so many brilliant artists. There's one in particular, and his name is Pascal. Now, I want to say Campion. I'm just going to find it on Instagram so I can be accurate. Yeah. As Pascal Campion. I hope I'm not butchering that surname. He's brilliant, and his art just goes to show, you know, you can create a really great story with digital art, and it doesn't look it's interesting in a, what's the word? It's just not got that, do you know, with like some digital art, and it's really shimmery and it's extra shiny and they've got big boobs and blah blah blah. It's not anime-esque, and it's really not over the top cartoony. It's just got a really lovely style about it. And that's not to say that, you know, if you want to do anime, that's fine, but that personally isn't my kind of digital art. And also, I think there are so many skills that traditional artists and digital artists can learn from each other. And again, this is only something I've kind of recently changed my mindset when I started doing art again last year. And every time I see a digital artist, I keep thinking, well, why can't I recreate that in a traditional way? What's stopping me from creating that same lighting or that same tone or that same texture? And the answer is really not much. I have to change maybe how I might use my skills, but there's no reason to say that I can't try and emulate what these artists are creating just in a traditional way. I think there's some kind of misunderstanding that digital artists don't have any traditional skills. But really, when you look at it, they too know how to draw in proportion. They know how to use their textures. They know how to create effective lighting. That is all stuff that you learn as a traditional artist as well. So digital artists are using the same skills. And I think when I was a kid, I just didn't believe that they were. And I thought that it wasn't fair, that they had some kind of tech advantage. And, well, in truth, they're brilliant artists. And they're using a lot of the skills I am, just with a different medium. You know, there's a whole thing about, oh, well, if they get it wrong, they can just rub it out and start again. Well, not really. Have you tried it? I think that's another thing, is I've been doing a little bit on Photoshop and stuff, and actually have come to appreciate that it has a whole other set of, with traditional art, you have certain things that you might stumble on, whether that's paper or it's color blending or whatever. And they have the same thing. They're just different problems that you encounter if you're not skilled or if you're still learning something. So overall, I'm here to say neither digital art nor traditional art is better than the other. Both of them can learn from each other, and both of them are worthwhile pursuits in the art world. I really hope you liked the outcome of my picture. I loved it. I was so happy with it. My next video, I'm going to be doing the next installment of Garfield's story. It's going to be him in his location that I will have chosen from one of your suggestions. So don't forget to leave a comment. And also, if you haven't already, do click the subscribe button. That's what I'm going to be doing next week. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. I loved doing this picture, which is why I'm late in doing this video, because I had so much fun doing it and it took me a bit longer. I'll see you next week for the next chapter of Garfield's journey. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you again. Bye.